a CEO perspective, then what are we seeing?
Oh, golly. What we see are meetings like this, where we talk about the fact that our education system is not so good. And if you're a history of this dialogue, I'll only take you back. How many of you were alive in 1958? Okay, well, 1958 was probably the first seminal report produced in the United States on the declining quality of K-12 education in the U.S. 1958, right after Sputnik went up. Pursuit of Excellence was the name of the report. More of you were alive in 1983. That's when A Nation at Risk was published. More of you were alive in late 90s. That's when, Before It's Too Late, the Glenn Commission report. Even more of you were alive when the National Academies did their two reports, Rising Above the Gathering Storm in 2005 and in 2010. The follow-on to that report, which says 5 years later it's worse than it was in 2005. And then we finally got august educational institutions like the Council on Foreign Relations to do studies on K-12. The interesting thing about all this is every one of those reports says exactly the same thing. They're almost plagiarized from the first report onward. And they all say, K-12 education is not doing well in the U.S. Other countries are catching us, passing us. Our kids can't do math. They don't know science. They can't read or write with comprehension. Other than that, it's pretty good. They know how to play football. And here are the three things you ought to do about it. And every one of the reports says exactly the same thing.
Tell us the three things.
Well, it says, first of all, it says education is hard work. There are no silver bullets. You can't do like the state of California and legislate that class sizes are going to be smaller and that will fix the education problem. The three things you need to do, fundamental, you need to have teachers who know the subject material and like to teach and are good at it, excellent teachers. You need to have high expectations. Kids are really pretty flexible because you were all kids once, right? And you all knew how hard you could work if you really had to, and you knew how little you had to do to get by, and you probably chose that route rather than the hard work route. So you need to have high expectations on kids and the system, and you need to have some degree of accountability. There has to be some impact if you don't do the work, and that goes for the teacher, the administrator, and the student. So some tension in the system. And every study, including a couple of studies by the National Governors Association, McKinsey's done a big study of education systems around the world. Every one of the studies concludes actually the same thing. Unless you have really good teachers, high expectations, and some degree of tension or accountability, game over. Doesn't work. We've been saying that now since the mid-50s. And we're still having meetings like this to talk about what we need to do. And you will hear today, get my cheap shots out of the way at the start. You'll hear today, oh, golly, it's blended education, it's use of technology, it's just cool stuff. It's you need to have different alternative forms of education. It's one of the reasons charter schools are doing pretty well around the world, is that one size doesn't fit all for kids because kids have different interests and different enthusiasms, different focus. You need to do all that. We've talked about all that for 50, 60 years. The real challenge is we haven't done much about any of it. And we're now having another discussion of it this morning.
Right, so